Welcome back to the City Ramble. On the panel with me, Amos Murphy, Adam Booker, and John Ashley. John, you joined us for the Fulham preview, and I said it was like bringing on Fernandinho to steady the ship. I don't even have an analogy other than probably like a firefighter trying to put out the flames for this one.
Yeah, I mean, I clearly didn't work for the preview, so it's just kind of the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and hoping for different results. So why you got me back again for this one, I don't know.
Well, we'll see. We'll get into it. Adam, you and Ollie Kirsch took the immediate post-match reaction, and it was typically spicy in City Ramble style. I was actually, for once, quite glad I wasn't on the review because it's given me a little bit of time to take in some City content, including, obviously, our very esteemed podcast. So you can, listeners, if you want some more City Ramble action, you can make sure to check that out after this. But I'm not sure I've subscribed to a lot of what has been said because, Adam, in your sort of back and forth with Ollie Kirsch, I was finding myself nodding along a little bit more with Ollie in the sense that I felt like you can put down a lot of what happened into the category of it was a random, chaotic, Barclays-esque fixture. At the time of the year, that tends to deliver it. Leicester 3, City 6, anyone. I wonder with a bit of time to have sort of stewed on it, because it is the season for stew and whatnot. Have you felt like you've come down from that a little bit?
Maybe slightly. I think, as Ali and I rightly pointed out on yesterday's episode, this game coming so quickly after the Leeds game, where it was another occasion where City seemed to let it slip and just kind of collapsed in that second half, I think made it a little bit worse. You bring up that Leicester game, and that was a game that was basically so alarming to Pep Guardiola and to City that they go out and they spend 60 odd million pounds on Ruben Diaz and made wholesale.
He was in the starting 11, not that Leicester game.
What am I?
City.
I'm thinking the 5-2, aren't I?
Yes, because that was a game where I believe City surrendered close to a 4-goal lead. I can't remember the specifics. Can maybe fetch that in a sec. But
the 5-2,
yeah, the one,
Leicester one,
the 6-3. Boxing Day 6-3, yeah. Where basically the what I mean is the fact that City were in such a what felt like a commanding position. Opposition gets back into it a little bit. I think they were 4-0 up.
What is this 6-3 Boxing Day against Leicester that I have absolutely no memory of?
21-22 season. Yeah,
you're probably just still hungover from Christmas.
Actually,
I am. To be fair,
I did. Last night was my play canasta at the pub night, so I am just actually literally hungover, but I don't remember that game in the slightest. But the point I'm trying to make is it doesn't feel like a thing that happens to City that often, which I guess the whole point of this last 3.5 minutes is you proving to me that it does happen and it's a thing that we should be okay with. I don't know. I think that when it comes off the back of the Leeds game and off the back of last season, where, yes, City were miserable in spells, but part of their misery was the fact that they couldn't close out games that they did play well for 40-odd minutes. You think of Feyenoord, you think of other occasions. So I'm not necessarily sitting here saying we need to be absolutely pressing the panic button and going into January and spending 60-odd million on a center back to come in and solve our problems like I had hinted at earlier. But I do still find it slightly alarming that a team known for, and I know so much has changed in the last 12, 18 months in terms of the makeup of the squad and the type of players that have been brought in, but a team that certainly under Guardiola has been known for suffocating you when they're ahead and never giving you a sniff back into a game once they've, sort of enforced their control. So it's still slightly alarming to me that can happen. I'd like to see the next time City, the Sunderland game, for instance, I want it to be just completely, utterly uneventful. I don't want there to be anything remotely exciting about it because I think City need that. I think they need to just go out there, go 2 goals to the good, and then stand on the ball for 80 minutes and just kill the game, just to prove that they can, because you don't really want to be in a situation where no lead feels comfortable. Because City have taken the lead quite a bit this season, and you guys talked about it in the build-up to the Fulham game, that even though they have taken the lead quite a bit this season, they don't seem to have the ability to come back into games when they haven't taken the lead. So you don't want to find yourself in a situation where on a weekly basis you're struggling to kill games, but also you can't be the team that comes back and fights back and all that kind of stuff. So listen, like I said, I'm not hitting the panic button, but when it happens twice in a week, it makes me feel
Well,
a
I
little
wanted
uneasy.
to, before we went on, because there's plenty to bounce off that, I wanted to do a quick straw poll. Adam, no elaboration. What did you find to be worse? Because in the last two games, City have obviously won both, but there's been elements of chaos in both of them. Leeds or Fulham, which to you felt worse? That's a heavy sigh for anyone that isn't watching the YouTube
I wish
stream.
I could elaborate, but I'll say Leeds.
Okay, yeah. I fall, like, not even needing a second in my eyes sort of to think about. I think Leeds was just, like, infinitely worse. John?
Yeah, Leeds, absolutely. Completely and utterly. Leeds was City being the merchants of their own downfall. City almost lost themselves or drew themselves the game. I thought yesterday City didn't do a lot wrong.
I think this is the point that I was trying to sort of steer us towards. It is the weirdest game I can remember in a long time to try and analyse, because for a large chunk of it, City were really good. They find themselves 5-1 up. And there is just this spell which I feel like maybe exists partly in isolation, but partly on issues that are very worthwhile to speak about, highlight. Some of them can be fixed, some of them might not be able to fix. And at the end of it, you just kind of find yourself in this big blob going, ugh. Like what happened?
I don't know, because I think that a lot of the same. I think we're sort of blinded by the fact that most of the goals in the Fulham game were either really fortunate. I think 2 or 3 of City's were really fortunate. The Doku one, the one that slips through to Foden, somehow gets all the way through the box to Foden on the back post. Or they were just really great finishes that I don't think either goalkeeper can do anything with. And that is fair and fine. That happened. But I still think that a lot of the situations that led to those moments being available, so to speak, are the same issues that cropped up in the Leeds game. City's inability to keep the ball when the other team is gathering a little bit of momentum. You'd think of a City team to be able to say, okay, let's go the next 5-7 minutes. Let's put our foot on top of the ball. Let's slow things down. Let's pass it around at the back and just take the sting out of this game. And they don't have the ability to do that.
Oh, well, they don't have the players. They don't have the
Right,
players to do
but
that.
still, I'm still going to criticize that and say it's still a thing that I don't find remotely sustainable and somewhat alarming for the rest of the season.
But I don't.
So,
This is where I've kind of, and John, it feels like you kind of sat there overseeing couples therapy. But like I look at the last sort of 20-25 minutes where it starts to go to pot. Well, it's a bit longer actually, and it's probably about 35 minutes goes to pot for City. That would be the perfect game to bring on Kovacic. Ideally, it's a perfect game to bring on Rodri, but we know Rodri is obviously, like Kovacic, MIA this season. And I think it's totally fair to criticise City's inability to see out the game. But when you're looking at your midfield options to come on and see out the game, being John Stones a centre-back, Ryan Shirky a central attacking midfielder, number 10, whatever, and Rico Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, I think City were trying to, and we had a couple more chances after Fulham began to kind of come back into it. Erling Haaland hit the post with a header. There was that chance where Savinho went through and somehow decided to go backwards instead. He got the ball caught under his feet. I don't think the approach was actually that bad. It was like, okay, we're gonna catch him on the counter, and we're going to get a goal that kills it. And like that Erling Haaland header goes in, it's absolutely game over at that point.
Yeah.
Savinho, same story. So, and that's the football we've been playing this season. That's the football that that's where football is going as well. It's less kind of total football, and it's a lot more balls going longer and rapid transitions. All of the teams are doing that, and so long balls, and like Fulham did well to get back into it, but everything that fell for them kind of, it wasn't like that Donnarumma was pulling off saves left, right, and centre. The goal wasn't being bombarded. the ball just like fell for Iwobi on the edge of the box. After a deflection, the ball fell twice for the other guy who scored. His name escapes me.
Chukwuemeka?
Yes.
Was that who it was?
Like it fell very kindly both times for him. Each time Donnarumma was unsighted and it goes in the corner anyway. The other goal they scored is a diving
Have you ever
header.
played Score Hero, the
Yes.
mobile game? It almost felt in far too many of those situations where it is a contrived chance and you've just got to sort of stroke your finger and curl it into the back of the net. Those were the chances they were getting.
Yeah, and it wasn't like, it was in some ways City were actually sitting a bit too deep defensively.
Very much so.
It wasn't like we didn't have enough men behind the ball. We almost had too many men behind the ball, and then we were running out, which was completely blocking Donnarumma's view, and they were just passing it into the space where those players weren't. So it's night and day for me from the Leeds game, because of the way that we continue to attack at the start of the second half. When that Foden goal goes in, you think, oh, it's game over, and then that Doku goal goes in, and you think, absolutely. Well, sorry, the own goal goes in, and it's absolutely game over. So I agree with you, Amos. It was just a completely wild card game that you can't really legislate for. And I think just because it happened directly after the Leeds game, we want to draw and continue that narrative from it.
I think Ollie Kirsch said this on the review show, but I'll repeat in case people haven't listened to that one yet. If that happens in a good run of form, then you sort of shake it off and go, well, that was a bit mad, wasn't it? But I tell you what, we'll group. And Adam, you are right to say that I think we do, after this week, need to go into Sunderland and have an almost like pour cold water on it and just win. I'm confident in this team doing that against a really good Sunderland outfit. That's a different question. Although, in terms of the negatives that I think are worth pointing out, City's second half ability, even going back to a point where they had, options and fresher legs, I do think has been a concern this season because, Adam, there does seem to be a tendency to drop back into a shell, but not like the Arsenal game, which obviously was the probably most obvious contrasting first and second half, bar maybe Leeds. It has felt like there is this vulnerability, and I personally don't know how confident I am in saying this, but I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that this is not only a new team, but it's also a young team, and you have to, you have to touch the pan when it's on the hob and get burnt by it to know not to go back and do it again. It does and maybe you could twist it into a positive and say these near misses. Or, Monaco, for example, where City dropped points from winning positions, Arsenal going back to September, you can maybe say that turns into a positive because they are experienced in it. There are tactical elements that need to be improved. I don't have the brain to sit down and explain exactly what they are, but I think a chunk of it is to do with the fact that this team does not have the experience to see out those games.
No, I think that's totally fair. And you're right that for them to in the Leeds and the Fulham game to come away from that experience with 6 points and be able to take away lessons, essentially, that they probably haven't learned many times throughout their career, is a valuable experience to have. And when Guardiola is trying to sort of put together sort of a new spine to this team that could be built to go deep in multiple competitions year on year for 3, 4, or 5 seasons, they have to go through these things. And they went through them. Even the great City teams from 2017 onwards went through them in various different ways, whether it was, they might have been flying in the Premier League, but they would learn their lessons in the Champions League and how to close out games in, on a big European night away from home and stuff like that. So I'm not necessarily sitting here with the criticism I've been making up to this point is not to say that these aren't things that they can't rectify. They absolutely can. And to put the positive spin on it like you have it, to be able to still pick up results while going through these experiences is a really valuable trait to have, to find a way to weather the storm, whether it's Phil Foden, scoring in stoppage time to, if you want to call it, bail you out, or, the Josko Gvardiol clearance on the line in stoppage time at Craven Cottage. Like they are finding ways to get through these moments. So that is a huge amount of progress from last season, where once the collapse started, you knew exactly how it was going to end. And you can't say that about this side. So I think it is, you're right, it's still valuable experiences, and to not come through them unscathed, but to come out of this week with 6 points and go into the Sunderland game wanting that calmer, less eventful sort of performance, but to go into that with 6 points off the back of those two games,
I think
you
it's a
can't
question of
really complain.
of who is rectifying it though, because in the treble season, like it's the defense, the midfield, and the attack are all kind of in perfect harmony, and anyone can kind of not rescue the game, but anyone can kind of take the game by the scruff of the neck and win it for you. The season after that, you're probably looking more at the defense. Is pulling more of the work. Last season, nobody was kind of coming to City's rescue. This season, and I think one of the big positives from last night was the number of different scorers. We're not just relying on Haaland, and the narrative has been so far this season that it's all Haaland. And if Haaland doesn't score, City doesn't win. City don't win. Haaland scored one in the last two games. We got 6 points. That's positive.
Well, you go back
change.
to Newcastle. What is it? 8 goals in the Prem, and Haaland scored once, which is, you say that two months ago. That's, he'd be, absolutely crazy to think that would happen.
Yeah, it's and so I think if we're like, okay, we're going to rely on attack this season, which is why I'm not surprised at how the game kind of went the way it did yesterday, and the way that City were trying to mitigate it wasn't by, all right, we're just going to see this out by keeping the ball in midfield or by the defence just shutting it down. It's going to be, we're going to grab another goal on the counter because we fully believe we're capable of that. And if that's what we've realised, and if that's the game plan, I'm happy to go with that.